Hello students, so today we're going to be looking at money and budgeting, which is a really important skill for students to develop, and as they as you guys sort of take on more responsibilities as you become adults, you'll really need this skill in everyday life, in all parts of your life. Now, before we get into that, I'd like you to attempt these two starter questions. So on the left-hand side, you've got some basic percentage questions. Work out 10%, 25%, 30%, and 15% of various numbers. And the mastered question is a worded question, okay? So I want you to have a go at that. Please pause the video. Press play when you're ready to continue. I will expect these answers included with your submission when you submit your homework. Okay, so moving on. So what we're doing today is thinking about managing money and how to budget for a household, particularly for different households. So, the aim really today is to get you to think about what outgoings you can expect and what income you can expect to receive in an average sort of a normal house, okay? And I want you to think about these key words are really important. So credit and debit are words that you probably have come across: credit card, debit card. Fixed costs you maybe are less familiar with, and variable costs. Outgoings and income I hope you are reasonably familiar with, okay? So I will briefly run through the fixed and variable costs before I move on. Fixed costs are things that are set, so set costs every month. So a good example of something like this would be a mortgage. Although there are such things as variable rate mortgages, but if you get a fixed rate mortgage, then what you've got is basically you're paying the bank back an amount of money, and it's the same amount of money every month for a period of time. Usually, a mortgage typically has a fixed term of between 2 and 5 years, and then by the end of those 5 years, it will revert to a variable cost. So then the cost it might change every month, but you'll still be paying off that mortgage, typically for something like 30 or 40 years, depending on how much your house is worth and how much how much income you have. So a fixed cost, another good example, one that's maybe a little bit more relatable for you guys, is something like a phone bill. So phone contracts, you buy a new phone, a Samsung S20 for example, and you get that phone on contract with unlimited minutes and unlimited texts and 5 gigabytes of data. That may cost you £40 a month for 18 months. So that is a fixed cost. Every month you're paying £40. A variable cost, on the other hand, would be something like a water bill or a gas bill, because those things vary dependent on use. If I am in winter, I'll probably be using the heating a lot more than I would in summer. So therefore, my gas bills, gas is what typically homes are heated using gas. The radiators are on more in the winter, therefore I have a higher gas bill in the winter. So, living independently, what do you think this number represents? Okay, what do you think this number represents? Pause the video now and write down a few examples of what you think this might be. Do you think it's the average salary? Do you think it's the average mortgage payment? What do you think this is? That is how much people have to pay in rent in London. Outside of London, it's a bit lower. So the average in the UK is £738 a month, which is, still a lot of money, but a lot lower than in London. And now what I want you to think about is what other costs are associated with living independently. What else do you have to pay for when you're living independently? You need to write down what you think the other costs are, and I can guarantee you're going to forget some. So write down some other costs that you would have if you're living independently. Independently meaning not with your parents. Maybe you're living with a flatmate, but you're living in your own flat or house. Pause the video, write down some ideas. Okay then, so some examples for you, students. Some things that you maybe forget about, but we all have to pay for. Food. Okay, food, groceries, that is a weekly expense. Every week you'll need to go shopping to buy food for your house. Electricity bills. So everything that runs on electricity in your house uses up electricity, which you then need to pay for. So fridges and TVs and computers and laptops and iPhone chargers and everything that runs on electricity needs paying for. So electricity bills. Rent is another one. So usually, if you're renting a house, you'll pay a monthly rent. If you own your own house, you'll probably be paying a mortgage for a good portion of your life. Water bills, council tax is another one that often people forget. If you think about a lot of things you have access to when you're living in a house. For example, people come and collect your bins. Now, those people who collect your bins work for Birmingham City Council, and therefore they get paid by the council. So the council tax you pay pays for that. Something else, a simple example would be something like a park, a public park. People forget the work involved in maintaining parks. You got to cut the grass, you got to look after all the swings and the slides, and pick up the litter and all the stuff that people take for granted. That it's just there for you. So there's a few examples: council tax, water bills, electricity bills, gas bills, rent, mortgage, and groceries, as well as petrol. There's a few simple examples. Okay. Now I haven't given you all of them. There are more, and depending on your house and your tastes, in terms of what you prefer in your house, there may be other expenses as well. But there's our starting point. Okay, students, so what I'd like you to now do is write down each of the costs on the left-hand side: running a car, food, gas, electricity, water, and TV license. And you are going to try and match up which cost on the right, which number, matches up with which cost on the left. So how much do you think running a car costs over the course of a year for the average adult? Okay, so you have a go at that. Please pause the video, press play when you're ready to see the answers. Okay. So, going through them one at a time then. First one, 388, is your water bill. Okay, now water bill in a normal household includes anything that uses or requires water. So for example, your washing machine, that needs water. You have a shower or a bath, that requires water. You flush the toilet, that requires water. You wash the dishes, that requires water. If you've got a dishwasher, that's got water. I don't know, you're watering your plants outside, you fill up with a tap, that's got water. So there's lots of different ways that this water bill sort of cranks up, and that's the average cost for an adult in a year. Next one, £604. That goes with the gas bill. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier in this video, when you pay for gas, this actually varies over the course of the year. So in the colder months, you'll pay more for your gas bill because you'll be using the heating more, whereas obviously when it's warmer during the summer, you'll pay less for heating. The other thing to bear in mind is that gas is typically how water is heated. So for example, you're having a warm shower every day. That will, yes, use up water, so that's a water bill expense, but also it will require gas to heat up the water. Depending on the type of boiler you've got and so on, but yeah, effectively it's going to be heated up. The water gets heated. Same for when you wash your hands with warm water, or you wash the dishes. Well, yeah, I don't know, you're doing wuzu, but you use warm water to do your wuzu. That will all cost water, and it will also cost money for gas as well. Next one, £3,100, big one, goes with running a car, believe it or not. So this doesn't obviously cover the cost of the car. I'm talking about the costs of running the car. So this may include insurance, MOT, standard sort of wear and tear over the course of the year. So every car, for anybody who knows anything about cars, whether it's a very reliable big name, or whether it's a very reliable not such a big name, or whether it's just a bit of an old banger, the fact is it will cost you some money in maintaining the car. I don't know, something goes wrong with the brakes, something goes wrong with the wheels, you need to replace, I don't know, whatever parts on a car, and actually the bigger the brand, if you've got a BMW, it'll cost more for the parts. So often it's actually cheaper to run a cheaper car. Yes, I know, perhaps it's less, I don't know, less esteem if you're driving around in a less I don't know what the word is, a less extravagant sort of car, but the big cars, the BMWs, Mercedes, Porsche, Jaguar, these big names, those parts cost a lot more. So that the brake pads on a BMW will be a more expensive part than the brake pads on a Skoda. So if you've got to replace your brake pads, it'll cost you a lot more if you're driving a BMW. As well as obviously petrol. So petrol's another one, or diesel. Next then, £853, that goes with the electricity bill. So electricity, as we discussed earlier, I mean, everything in your house that uses electricity will cost some amount of money to run. I'm talking about things like, the broadband router. Nearly every house, modern house in this country now has broadband, so you'll need a router, and that router is plugged into the mains, so it costs money. TV costs money, your phone chargers, your electric toothbrush charger, anything that's plugged in to the mains sockets will use electricity, therefore it costs money. Next one, £145.50 is for your TV license. Now, TV license is something that every house that has a TV and watches terrestrial channels, or is connected to terrestrial channels, you have to pay this license, okay? Now, this license, in case you didn't know, pays for, effectively it pays for the BBC, so it provides the BBC with a budget, and the BBC can then create the shows they create, so the BBC News, or EastEnders, or, I don't know, Dragon's Den, or, all the shows that come on the BBC are paid for using the TV license, in addition to some other funding that they receive. So that is something for you all to think about. You pay your TV license, and you're paying for the salary of the actors on EastEnders, and you're paying for the production costs and all the other things associated with that. So whilst it may seem like £145 quite a lot of money, you do get some value for your money. You do get something for that. I think people forget that. They just feel like, oh, we have to pay this £150, it's a lot of money. Yeah, but you do get something for that. All the free to watch channels. So during the lockdown, CBeebies and all the things that they did to try and help you work while you were at home, all the studying that you were doing while you were at home, is paid for using the TV license. Last one then, £4,472 is the average yearly cost for food for an adult. Okay. Right then. What I want you to now do is have a discussion with somebody else in your house, or a friend or family in your house, about how you could reduce those bills. This is not something that you're going to be writing down necessarily, so I'm not going to see this, when you submit your work on ClassCharts. But I want you to think about and discuss with somebody in your house how you could reduce these costs. Okay, so what comes next is, this is preparation for your next activity, really. So on this slide, you can see an income and expenditure calculator, or income and expenditure sheet, which you, in a minute, are going to copy up. So you're going to have to copy this with all those blank boxes, and you're going to need 3 of these. So you're going to copy it 3 times, okay? What you're going to do is, after having copied this, I'm going to show you 3 scenarios. And you are going to fill this out for those 3 scenarios, okay? And work out how much money in each scenario the person's got left after doing this final step at the bottom here. This final step at the bottom, income, take away expenditure, is what you're left with. You're saving each month or week or year. So let's have a look at the scenarios, and it'll make a bit more sense. So here are your 3 scenarios. These are the 3 questions, I suppose, that you'll need to answer by the end of this lesson. So you've got one scenario here with a single man living alone, working and earning £900 a month, and these are all of his expenses. This one, second scenario, a little bit more complicated because you've got some benefits to think about. You've got child benefit because these people have children under the age of 16, and again, you've got some bills. And finally, the last one is about a man living with his son, and these are his monthly expenses. Okay. So what I want you to do is to fill out the document on the previous slide. So you'll have to rewind the video, copy that up, fill out that document, the income and expenditure sheet, and work out how much this person saves. And then the same for this family, how much do they save? Or indeed, do they save anything? Do they end up actually in the red, meaning that they are not saving each month, but they're dipping into their savings? In order to get by each month, they have to dip into their savings by some amount, for example. So you need to do that. Once you've completed your income expenditure sheet and you've got a clear answer for how much each family saves or each person saves, I'd like you to take a picture of this and upload to ClassCharts to complete today's work. Thank you very much, students.